morning. It's Wednesday night, live with Arlene, and I'm here, and we are here with Jennifer Nowicki, and she is the owner of Cultivate Taste. And this Cultivate Taste is she sells teas. So if you are anything like me and want to know about tea, this is the place to be. So if you are here live, please let me know you're here live. And if you have any questions, you have any specific questions that she can answer, please drop it in the comments. You'll see me looking over to the right, because I'll periodically looking for if there's any questions. So yay! All right. So Jennifer, why don't you let us know how you got into tea? Because I'm looking at some info on you, and 30 years in the food industry, 25 years in the tea industry, and I think that's just amazing. One of the things that are on here is as one of 8 people to represent the U.S. in the tea industry in 2 world tea competitions, I guess.
Conferences in China.
It got cut off. Conferences. So why don't you just let us know how you got into this?
Well, I've been drinking tea my whole life. I drank it with my grandmother, so that's kind of where I just have fond memories of that. Then when I was in my adulthood, I lived in Seattle and I saw really nice whole leaf, loose leaf teas, and I just it ramped it up. I just was really intrigued by it. I needed to know more. And then eventually in 2005, I started to become a certified tea specialist from the Specialty Tea Institute in New York City. That I was able to become one in 2009. So that's kind of what really started it. I just wanted to know more.
Oh wow! So you've been since 2009, huh?
I became a certified tea specialist.
Certified. Okay, so
Yes, yeah.
certified. Okay, so I'm curious, and I don't know if anyone else is here is curious. There's so many different types of teas. So could you maybe pick out maybe 5 of the most popular that if you could just talk about the differences between them, as far as taste is concerned.
Sure. Well, one that's really popular lately is matcha, which is a Japanese green tea. With most Japanese green teas, they tend to steam it versus pan firing it. So it kind of is a little thicker. It has a lot of ECGCs. That's why Japanese green teas are considered pretty healthy. Another really popular one is pu'er teas. They've been pretty popular lately. They're usually from the Yunnan district in China. They're aged, so they're kind of like how some fine wines they get better with age. People get some people get crazy enough on them like that. They'll have certain climate controlled rooms and everything like that. It's a little thicker, a little heavier. They're known to be multiple steepers, so even if you do get if it does cost, I mean, they do increase in value. So there's also that. And let's see, just anything from like Darjeeling, which are really nice, really light black teas from India. They're light, they're delicate, they're complex. And then the funny thing is just next to it is Assam black teas. It's another black tea, and it's really super heavy. It's kind of like Darjeeling and Assam are like yin and yang. I mean, um, Darjeeling tends to be one of the lightest of the blacks, and Assam tends to be one of the darker and heavier of the blacks. That's where you get, the malty. That's when you think of like English teas where they put milk in it. Assam's, you do that, you wouldn't want to really do it with a Darjeeling. Those are very popular. There's anything from I know that's lately what has been becoming a little bit more popular in the United States. It's still really small. Is oolong teas, and they're a little bit of a mix between black and green. So they're semi-oxidized. They're very complex, and technically it's my favorite. And this is not me just saying it because, you know, it's becoming popular now because it actually is. There's been a few articles I've read about it, but Taiwan and China are really well known for it. And I do have some really unique ones from Thailand, and they kind of also add a little bit of some of their herbs, so it kind of gives like a little bit of like a sticky rice taste to them. So it just with oolongs, they can be anywhere close to a green or closer to a black. It just depends on how oxidized and how they taste, but they tend to taste complex, and they also tend to be multiple steepers.
You said sticky rice tasting. And
Yes.
I just thought, I'm like, is that why I love oolong so much? I love rice.
Oh, do you? I like the taste.
Oh my God.
This is a certain one that has some certain herbs in it that do taste like it, but I do have one that I didn't even know that there was one. I just know that this one was a specialty, and I was doing it because I had an event that had a lot of Hmong people, and it was up in the mountains there. So I got this one, and it was supposed to be a specialty yours, and I liked the taste. And then somebody like, oh, this is just like that sticky rice tea I like, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Sticky
So
rice.
now I found out from my customers that yeah, this is this. I put quote sticky rice tea because that's how people will kind of get know what it is.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's awesome. You said something. You said complex taste. Can you explain that to me? I really I don't understand.
Oh, well, it's going to have a lot of different varying tastes. Like, trying to see, it can have anything from fruit to floral to nutty, all in the same one. Especially with, let's see, with, and there's even with Darjeelings, they have different flushes, have different tastes. Like usually the second one tends to be have a little more muscatel taste to it. The first flush tends to be a little more lighter, more delicate, but it times develops even with and the flush is just the different pickings because they usually do at least 2 to 3 in most countries, depending on the weather, the climate, and everything like that, and what they traditionally do. So
You mean like two
sometimes
to three pickings a year as far as the.
usually, and some might even do more, and some probably might do like probably like 1 or 2. It depends on what they're trying to do or the specialty they're trying to do. um like white teas are usually picked the first, they're the first plucking and they're the first of the year, and they're usually the best. um with most matchas are usually they try to get is the first plucking or two because it's tender leaves and stuff, if that makes sense.
So I'm just trying to understand. So different teas have different seasons.
Well, not always. Black teas can go from the first all the way through. Oolongs can go all the way through. There's actually some oolongs that are purposely they're like autumn. It's usually called the autumn flush for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reasons. It's first and second. They usually autumn or monsoon flushes. It depends on where they're picking it and stuff. Where they have what they call it. Kind of like there's different grading systems. They call it different things, different areas.
Mm-hmm.
That has never been standardized. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Um, how about like, is there certain regions where they specialize in certain teas?
Definitely. Um, like I know when I was in Shangzhou with where Hangzhou is, it's well known. Is in Hangzhou, there's a UNESCO World Heritage Site for Dragon Well tea. It's a very popular, very well revered Chinese green tea, and that comes from that area. I know that I've seen them where they have gunpowder, which is kind of balled up and it kind of looks like a gunpowder kind of pellet, like for lack of better. That's kind of why that's called that. I know I just recently got a a Chinese. Since most of the Chinese green teas are pan fired, but there's always an exception to the rules, like almost anything. And there is one, and it's in the Hebei area, and it is a steamed green tea, which is usually when you think of steamed green, my naturally thinking is Japan. And Japan itself is kind of really known for steamed green teas. Um, like what I said about Darjeeling, that's a certain little area way up high in the Himalayan mountains. And next to it, as I said, is another area which is much bigger than Darjeeling, is for the Assam, which are, it's even a different leaf. The lack of better terms is the Darjeeling is usually a smaller leaf, and that's usually considered a Chinese leaf for better lack of better terms. Even though you can get the broader, bigger leaf, which does Assam, you can get that and it naturally grows in the Yunnan area. But for some reason, that's what they call it. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I mean those are different. You know what I mean? Very different teas that are in the area. Um, if you go to the Fijian area in China, you have, I think that's the area where there's white teas. I'm trying to remember that, but I know for sure that's where oolong teas first started, and then they really got really well developed in Taiwan.
Hmm.
I can really geek out on
No,
that.
yeah, it's a lot. So you guys, if you have any questions about anything, please drop it in the comments. It says here, how about tea from Azores?
Azurus, as
Yeah.
in, I don't know much about it. They might do it. I know that they have them in many different countries. They have it in, you can get purple teas. Well, they can grow naturally in Yunnan, but there's not a lot of them are known to be in Africa. There's ones grown in South America. There's Turkey. There's the Caucasus Mountains. They probably do. I don't know specifically of ones grown in Azores, but they probably do. I don't know anything about it though. Sorry.
Okay. 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 So I know there's like different qualities of teas, right? So we go to the store, right?
Yeah.
And there's Lipton, and there's all these different brands, right? So how do I know if I am purchasing a quality tea?
Well, I am a little bit biased. I do really like higher end loose leaf teas. You're going to most likely get a better quality. You probably want to know somebody who has that knowledge and or has been in the industry for a while. Um, there is also some people, not as many, I haven't seen, but there are some people who hype up, and it's more the hype of it than actually getting good quality ones. There are some really good other quality tea companies that really do strive. And there also will say different grades, like
Oh,
I'm trying to remember how to fancy, flowery, um, it, I'm trying to remember the grading system that's usually used in India, but there's like a super high grade and it'll actually have it. It's probably about 5 or 6 different letters. It would never have broken in it. Pico is usually in there. Flowery is usually in there. Fine will be in those words. If you see that, that usually means it's a higher grade. In China, Japan, sometimes they'll call it professional or imperial or competition grade. Competition, if that means that basically they're going, that's the top grade itself. I mean, you can still get really good quality ones. Um, but I mean, that's the top of the top one, grades for those countries usually. That
well,
makes
that's
sense.
interesting to know. So that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, because I remember, I would get like a Harney and Sons catalog. And I'd be like, wow, these are awesome. So I mean, and I don't know if like you go to the grocery store if they have those grades on those. Do they have them on there?
Most likely they don't unless it's a specialty store. And even then, I don't. I think more likely you're going to get those at a tea place that focuses purely on tea. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Or
Mm-hmm.
it's predominantly what it is. You might and online sellers tend to do it a little more because they can do that. And even the online sellers like that, and even some local ones, I mean, specialty ones, they might even do different grades of a certain one because sometimes that's what someone wants, and or it depends on what they're using it for. Like I would never use a culinary grade matcha tea to drink it, but if I'm going to be cooking with it, I'm going to use a culinary grade because it's it works well for that, if that makes sense too. So it depends on your use also. So there is a reason why you have culinary grades. but you wouldn't want to drink it. I wouldn't personally, but if you want, go for it.
Okay. So like so what grade if we were ever looking, what grade do we get for if we're drinking it? So we get professional grade or
Um, for it's usually considered ceremonial. I do have some heritage, which is a little bit better, just by a little bit. And then there's competition, which is the highest. Sometimes you don't see those on there, but at least if you're usually getting a good ceremonial, and you know what? Also look at seeing what some of the comments are. You know what I mean? If they have like reviews about it, and you can kind of see, oh, that looks good. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
you can find some really good matchas that are really smooth. They have a nice taste to them, and I've had ones that were still ceremonial, and I don't know, they seemed a little, they didn't seemed a little sharp to me, or a little, but they might, they're still ceremonial. So even in there, there's,
Hmm. Hmm.
but you're at least better chance of getting a good quality one if you get that versus, I mean, you're getting culinary, expect that it's purely for cooking, and you I mean, don't expect that to be drinking that personally and going, oh, this is good. You know what I mean? I mean, you may like that taste to it, but you know what I mean?
Mhm. Okay, I have another question. So, with different types of tea, I've noticed that there's different times to steep. So, like, there'll be 5 minutes, some be like 2 minutes or whatever. So, what happens if we go under or over when we steep it? Steep.
Under, you may not fully get as much of the flavor. I think it's a little bit better, I guess, to underdo it, but that's also my little bit of a preference. Over steeping, especially for like greens and blacks, that's when you get that bitterness too much, and that's why sometimes if people leave that in and then they don't like the tea, it's like, well, that might be the reason why. It might be the quality of the tea, but that could be probably you first want to do that. There's also too is you want to for different type of teas, different temperatures. I mean, you don't have to get, I mean, depends on how much of a tea person you are. You can actually get thermometers, but also too is you can just kind of let it sit and make sure that green teas shouldn't ever have boiled water. So you just kind of maybe either boil it or just get it to a slight simmer and just let it sit for a minute, and then put the tea in, if that makes sense. Because otherwise it tastes
Yeah,
burnt.
I didn't realize. I didn't realize that you couldn't be that hot. I figured I'm like, okay, I'm boiling my water and I'm going to put my, that's what I do.
Well, I mean, for black teas and anything that's herbal, 9 times out of 10, or actually even probably even more, that you're probably pretty safe. But anything else, just let it sit for a bit. Maybe wait to get your tea ready. I mean, in the thing to probably put in a strainer after you take it, the boiled water. And so that gives it a little time to sit for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Right.
as I said, you can get really anal about it and, get a thermometers. And there are a lot of people, and I usually kind of do for myself. But I know that for if you're just somebody who just likes it, you probably don't want it boiling for green, but you can just let it sit for a little bit,
Got it. Got it.
if that makes sense.
There's a question here. So, are, do you have any recipes using tea?
Um, I
I mean, it says
do.
what culinary recipes use tea? There's two questions about that.
Oh, quite a bit. There's actually recipes where like there's a Burmese tea salad recipe where they actually use the tea leaves themselves. You do want to caution that because there's technically more caffeine than there is in coffee. It's just extracting from the leaf. You usually don't get as much caffeine, but if you're actually ingesting the leaf, that's when you do. So somebody could be eating the actual tea leaves themselves and like wondering why they're like, running around like a chicken with their head cut off. So that might be why. So do caution that, especially if you're, a little more sensitive that way. But I mean, there's a lot of bakery that uses it. I've used people like lapsing sushan, which has a naturally smoky taste to it. Um, that one, works well if you're trying to do that smoky flavor, and sometimes they'll do it in like savory dishes. And they actually use lapsang souchong a lot in dishes. Some people, I mean, they may not like to drink it. I like to drink it, but there's some people who prefer using it more for culinary. You can use Earl Grey, you can use pu'ers. Pu'ers work really well with chocolate. Matcha is very well extensively used. Um, and you can experiment with other ones, I guess, you know what I mean? But I know those are usually at least ones that I know pretty well, that though you probably could do some green ones. Hmm. Yeah,
That's
I don't
interesting.
know.
So I think we're going to be looking up on the internet tea recipes with tea because
Oh, there
I
will
mean
be
I
quite a
never thought of that.
yeah, I've played around with it, especially like like cookies or scones or anything like that. Yeah, yeah.
Oh boy.
Cook, yeah, cookies taste really good with that. Yeah,
Oh
all different
boy.
types. Yeah, and as I said, puer really works well with chocolates, so there should be quite a few, and so does actually matcha goes because they're both bolder and stronger. They can handle each other. So
I have a question. You know what? I tend to like rubious tea. What gives it that taste? It's so different to me.
well, because it's technically a plant from South America, South Africa. Sorry, I always get those two mixed up. South Africa, it's from a bush there that they grow. And most likely when you're drinking it, it's going to be oxidized, and that's what gives it the red color. There's an unoxidized version, and I do sell a little bit of that, and that one is green. So it tends to be naturally fruity, a little, nutty, a little on the sweet side. It doesn't have any caffeine. So
It does not have any caffeine.
no, no. The only way it would have caffeine is if you add something that has caffeine in it.
Okay, because I think it's like rubious chai. I've seen that.
That's probably yeah, when you're looking for a caffeine type of chai, that probably would be the one.
Okay. There's another question. Has anyone tried or recommended tea from Portuguese or Portugal? Is there any tea in Portugal that you know of that's like special over there?
Not that I know of. No, sorry.
Okay.
I mean, they may grow it, and I know they grow it in Brazil and Argentina, but not, I mean, I don't know if anything specifically there. I do
Okay.
know that they've actually, I know somebody at least who has started it in Italy, and as I said, I know Turkey does,
Mm-hmm.
and there are some in England. There's some places that are kind of doing it. I think it's a little more of a hobby there at those places, just because it's not usually traditionally that, though Portugal might be, especially if it's in the mountains.
Hmm.
And it's
Okay.
probably got enough of the Mediterranean climate that it could possibly eventually grow there. But I'm not, I
Okay.
can't say for sure.
No, it says here they grow with no pesticides. I
Okay.
found that. Okay. Shop Portuguese. I guess you can find it on Shop Portuguese.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
It's not one of their major outlets. They're not one of the, when you think of tea producers, but I mean, they're
Okay.
starting to grow it a lot of different places. So, as I said, I just within the last couple months did I know that Italy's starting or has some growing there
New.
too.
Yeah, it's new to
But
them.
it's still not a huge thing there.
Okay, there's another question here. It says, can you explain the basic benefits, uses of different types of tea?
Almost all tea is really excellent for cancer. I would say, especially mainly whites, but a little bit. I've heard a little bit. Definitely greens also are good for Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, and I know that one really well. It's because my grandfather died of Alzheimer's. So whenever anything like that, it always perks me up. I want to know about it. Um, Japanese green teas have the ECGCs. There's a lot of antioxidants. Some of them actually have, especially I think the shade grown ones have the chlorophyll, so it tends to have some vitamin C in there, which is excellent for a lot of things. I know that it's usually helps with your metabolism. I'm trying to think of anything specifically with black. I'm trying to remember right now. I haven't really prepped and I haven't talked about all this stuff, but those for sure I know. Um, black, I know that it's excellent for cancer, and they're seeing that it still is pretty healthy for you also. So
All right.
uh,
I feel like tea's always healthy.
it pretty much, well, it depends on how much sugar you put
Yeah,
in
okay, well,
it.
I have it with, I don't know, I guess because I just have it plain, but
Oh,
yeah.
and there's also, well, that's how I do it. And also here's one thing too, is I didn't say, is that if you're going to drink tea and you're purely on just the taste of it, if you want to add milk, that's fine. But if you're looking for the health benefits, the milk usually negates that. So just, you know what I mean? So if you're looking for, you know, you know, like if you had like actually a matcha latte, it probably won't be as healthy as you think it is, if that makes sense.
Because you put milk in it.
Yes.
Got
And
it.
usually when you're doing a latte too, you tend to put a lot of sugar, and that's not going to be fully healthy for yourself either, if that makes sense.
Okay, there's another question here. Any good teas for inflammation or migraines, headaches?
Well, the funny thing is sometimes they say because there is some caffeine that sometimes helps with migraines. I mean, uh, probably there are some green teas that work well for that. So, I'm trying to think of anything I can think of specifically, but
Well, I
I
mean, I
know
know
that
that a lot of people, when people have migraines, they tend to have caffeine. So yeah, I can see that. But just to add to that, you know, our brains need water, our head needs water. So drink lots and lots of water,
that
body.
always helps too. Exactly. And that's what's so nice about tea, because it's basically is. A lot of it is.
Yeah, and there's a little caffeine for just a little bit more. Okay, let's see. I don't see any more comments coming along. So thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. I learned a lot. I'm probably gonna like listen to this again so I get all that stuff. So what I'm gonna do, guys, she has a tea store, Cultivate Taste, and I'm good. After we wrap this up, in the comments I will put her links down there so you can get some tea, because I know I'm going to be getting some.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Oh, wait. Wait, there's another one here.
Right.
Okay, there's another one. Between white, green, and black, which has the most caffeine? Isn't that black?
Usually black, though. Matcha, the Japanese green tea there is because you're actually ingesting the leaf when you drink it. That probably has technically more, but I would say for the most part, blacks, whites, teas, unless they're not from the Chinese area, they can tend to have a lot more caffeine also. So sometimes it's a terroir. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. That's good to know too. Lots of wisdom. Dropping bombs, Jen. All right, everybody. I hope you guys have a great evening. If you have any other questions, please drop it in the comments, and I will put her links down there if you're interested. And you guys can always reach out to her. She's in this group as well. Reach out to her if you have any questions, or just keep on, put your comments underneath the video. All right, everybody. Bye bye.